Trendsetter, it seems like when we try to get ahead, we just fall far and far behind. I mean, there's just so much wrestling news out there. It's just crazy, man. Like we have like this nice little tight formatted show for you guys, and all of a sudden we get returns and injuries and arrests and people getting checked into the hospital. It just never ends in the world of pro wrestling. And we're about to close 2023, so we got a couple of announcements as well at the end of the show. So make sure that you guys stick around. But what's going on, guys? It is the HSP Podcast, High Spot Podcast on the Give the Shot Network, powered by Fast Break Coffee. I'm glad that they're there this time. Last week, we kind of missed them. Trendsetter, what's going on? How are you? You're my tag team partner in crime. What's going on?
What's going on, Jeff? It's like what you said. There's just so many things that have happened that, you think you kind of know what you're going to be talking about. And before you know it, all these things happen and it just completely changes everything, which, hey, it's no problem for us. We're used to kind of, sitting by the seat or the edge of our seat, really waiting for these things to happen. So we can improvise. It's not a problem here. And looking forward to it, man. Literally, not even before or even mentioning WrestleMania season, but it's the excitement right now that things that how we'd spoken about before that somewhat seem predictable now aren't necessarily that predictable anymore, which is great as a wrestling fan because you just never know what's going to happen now.
Just finished watching SmackDown. Really good show. And all I got to say is that roster is stacked, man. We'll talk about that a little bit during the show. And we're probably going to do some kind of reactions later on this week about just what happened on because there's just so much going on right now. But, you know, listen, it seems like right now WWE is like on this, has this huge momentum. And it seems like AEW, which started out with its momentum and just was really is revolutionizing pro wrestling, becoming that alternative, has kind of hit a little bit of a brick wall through injuries, through firings, just through everything going on now. We're going to discuss about that as well. But I think the big story of this past week has got to be the talk about the Raw media rights, or basically the Raw TV rights, of who's going to air Monday Night Raw. Obviously, it's moving to Friday nights. SmackDown back to the USA Network, so it kind of leaves a door there for Monday Night Raw to go on to another network. And it looks like that's the case. But one in particular company that we didn't think was going to be in the mix has now become a very viable option for WWE, and that is Warner Brothers. And why would you say is that a very surprising company? That is because that's the same company that has the rights right now to AEW Dynamite and all of the AEW programming as far as Collision and Rampage. Very peculiar trendsetter that right now they are in talks, and all of this could have been avoided had Tony Khan decided not to fire CM Punk and taken the side of a mid jobber in Jack Perry. But I digress on that, trendsetter. How surprising. I mean, I am totally surprised here that this has even gotten to this point where Warner Brothers Discovery now could be a viable option. And if whoever you hear right now, it could be the option as we head into the next few months. Are you surprised that it's gotten this far and that Warner Brothers could be closing in on WWE?
I can't say I've been surprised. You know why? Because nothing surprises me now in the world of business, as we've both seen from examples in wrestling to other forms of business. It doesn't surprise me if something has gained as much momentum as you had mentioned before, starting off the show, that WWE is on this huge roller coaster right now, where it's up and down in terms of excitement for a fan, but from business wise, business is doing great right now in terms of the type of momentum they have gained, and they're still garnering that same momentum leading into clearly WrestleMania, because we're in the midst of WrestleMania season. And AEW is now, it feels like, at least from, just trying to be objective here, is doing the opposite. What surprised me when you told me about this is, like, when you said to me, I was like, okay. But then in terms of kind of correlating the fact that, because when CM Punk signed and we saw and you showed me the projections of the shows in the past couple of weeks, with broken down in segments, and basically CM Punk's segment being the highest one out there. And could the two be linked? Possibly too, but listen, man, at the end of the day, anything makes sense. Granted, yes, they're connected with AEW right now, but as we know, whether it be Fox or USA, or when WWE is on Spike TV or Paramount, whatever makes business sense and garners the most money. Because when they made the shift over to Fox, it kind of didn't make sense, but when you saw the amount of money was going in on that deal, you're like, wow, well, of course now, why wouldn't WWE go that route? So, it doesn't surprise me one bit. What would be interesting to know what happens is that, let's say, for example, it goes that route. Now AEW has to find a new home. And I think, honestly, the way things are going, that would be kind of one final shot in the gut for AEW. I mean, granted, they would find another production or another TV network to do it in, but to lose that momentum, if it were possible, which I think it seriously is, what a blow for AEW if that occurred. But also, what a um great launching point in terms of, wow, just continuing that momentum for WWE, and what a great statement that would make for them.
Hey, listen, I mean, just the very fact that this is even going on right now surprised a lot of people because whoever you listen to, whether it's the AEW supporters or whether it's people that are in the business and they're saying that Warner Brothers had a really good relationship with AEW and Tony Khan and that they were talking and everything was progressing and that they had bought more time. They actually made a show, Collision, for CM Punk because obviously they couldn't get along with the elite CM Punk and they basically wanted him very badly. And listen, he's been the highest commodity the AEW has ever signed so far. And he's still leading merch getter for that company. So when they make a show for you, they're kind of not going to be happy when you get rid of that guy. And my first reaction was like, listen, even before when CM Punk had signed and everything was in the honeymoon stages, everything revolved around Punk and what he was going to do outside of the company. You heard Warner Brothers say they wanted to put him in movies. They wanted to do all these other things. There's the outside projects that they wanted CM Punk for. Not only was he going to be the face of AEW, he was also going to be the face outside. CM Punk draws. And as much as maybe I don't want to admit it, or maybe as I can be in denial, he obviously does because the numbers don't lie, right? It's evident right there in the ratings jump when he's there, when he's on screen. People want to see him. He is a lightning rod. They want to see what he says next. So for AEW to even be in this spot, Trendsetter, is just to me shows you that right now they're going through a lack of leadership and B just are everything right now, which turned to gold. Every signing that Tony Khan would bring out would be amazing, and they would have some kind of direction. Now they don't have direction. Now it seems like okay, it kind of seems like a WCW thing. They would sign somebody, it'd be hunky dory for a few months, and then again, what do you do? What do you do with guys like Amiro who looks so directionless right now? What do you do with guys that have come in like Aleister Black, Malachi Black? He's stuck in the trios match, hasn't had a singles matchup in what seems like forever. Andrade, who is maybe possibly on his way out back to WWE, you don't know, but his contract is expiring soon. It seems like right now there is a lack of leadership. And where are the EVPs to be found? They're on hiatus. They're focusing on their heel turn as they come back. They've given up being the elite. Kenny Omega again is going through a booking phase where I don't understand why he is not being put in a better situation. The man is the cleaner. The man is the best bout machine, and he's stuck in a tag team with Chris Jericho. Kind of looks like it's forced. They don't seem comfortable together. There's so much right now with AEW, the negativity, the lack of crowds, like we talked about last week, and it's led to this. It's led to now there being a kind of the honeymoon phase or that lovey-dovey feeling between Warner Brothers Discovery and Tony Khan and AEW. Instead of it being a love and a friendship, it seems like this is just business, right? Wouldn't you say so?
Well, yeah, kind of like I said, it's business. It really is. If you are signing a contract for work for a network and they're expecting a certain number, right? And I'm not going to pretend like I'm Eric Bischoff and I know what I'm talking about in terms of ratings and numbers, right? But I just, from layman's terms, if you sign a contract for a certain amount of numbers that you plan on doing for viewership to validate the amount of money you're getting paid to be put on that time slot or being promoted on that show and helping build that channel, network, streaming platform, whatever, and you're not living up to that, and then you're hearing an offer or negotiations for another promotion that's the same kind of thing, but doing higher and doing more and has more of a broader audience, which is what you want, what are you going to do? You could say it's lack of leadership too. I would also use the word for AEW in terms of it seems like there's a lack of direction too. You mentioned a few names there where there are hires, and when you heard about it, you're like, oh wow, this individual is all elite, this person's all elite, so cool. And then unfortunately, which seems to be now the pattern that's going on with all the wrestling right now. And again, this isn't us bashing it, it's just being obvious and being stating facts. It just doesn't really seem it has been pretty successful because of those people you mentioned, and all of a sudden, like, where are they now? They're kind of off TV, and then they'll show up 3 or 4 months later. Looks like they're gaining momentum, and then it's kind of start and stop really what's happening. So it's frustrating, definitely.
So there you go. There you have it. And now the fact that the guy that you fired in CM Punk, listen, I'm not sure. This is companies, right? This is billions of dollars, millions of dollars is going to be transferred over. I'm not sure that one guy could have this huge pull like CM Punk. Like, for example, them saying that CM Punk kind of brought WB back to WWE and opened the door for the talks. Maybe, but I don't think CM Punk was like, listen, guys, talk to, I have their personal number and maybe give it over to Triple H or Nick Khan or somebody in the group of TKO, right? But I do think that the name is somebody that Warner Brothers had their eye on from the start. There's the guy that's like, wait a minute, now he's over here and now he's playing these ratings because again, look at the numbers, right? And they're looking at it and like, whoa, wait a minute, like this is what we always thought. And now he's on this place, which is a company which is basically like the Yankees, right? When you
Yeah.
go to companies, these are like the New York Yankees, established company, and we have CM Punk over here. Triple H, he I can tell you right now, I don't think he likes CM Punk, but he is not going to not do business. He is a smart guy, man, and he knows that this would have put them over the top. Raw was not going to get $400 million. They weren't. They were going to get maybe 200 million, 250, and talks were stalling, and there really was no direction, no legit number one contender. Maybe FX maybe was in the mix at that point, but they weren't going to get $400 million. Now with a guy like CM Punk, are you going to get the $400 million? Maybe not, but you're going to get closer to your target than you wanted to. And it was just a phenomenal decision by Triple H to put any animosity aside. And now it's like a love fest. Like Trendsetter, it is so weird to see the I guess the honeymoon stage, right? You wonder how long it's gonna last, but right now, like it's crazy to see CM Punk happy. I'm like, is this part of a plan? Is it part of is it part of like an angle? He just looks so happy there. It looks like, man, he really is happy to be home. But a guy like CM Punk, you can't underestimate how important he was. Now, is he the deciding factor when we turn around? If that's a deciding factor, that's shame. That's really a shame on Tony Khan.
No, it definitely is. And like I said, this is a direct result of what we're seeing now, where this was once a possibility, went away, and now it's a possibility again. Just shows you, man, business oversees anything personal.
All right. So with that now, do you think that AEW and Tony Khan are going to regret firing CM Punk? Do you think that it could have been handled differently? I'll tell you how I feel. I've put it on social media that I think that the moment that this whole situation happened, seeing the Jack Perry uh, blasting CM Punk on a pay-per-view, having that happen, having the personal stuff creep onto the pay-per-view and kind of maybe go into business for yourself, to me that was a fireable offense. And with everything that happened to Brawl Out, you had to make an example. Now, CM Punk in the wrong? Did he touch Tony Khan? He said he feared for his life, right? I don't know what happened there, but it should never have gotten there. They should have nipped Brawl Out in the bud. And what happened was they think that the inmates are in the asylum, and then you have that situation where Jack Perry went into business for himself and basically single-handedly could have turned the direction of a company around. You know what I would have done, Trendsetter? I would have fired him on the spot and made an example. Say, hey, I'm not going to deal with this garbage anymore. And I would have found a way to keep CM Punk because now, if it's the reason that they're off of Warner Brothers Discovery and they're going to FX or they're going to be moved to Discovery in place of WWE, that's it, man. That is the final blow. I don't care what happens after that. That will always loom on you. That will be on your resume. That will be etched on your tombstone. That's what you let happen as the owner of that company, AEW. You let that happen under your watch, or it could have been prevented.
Well, I think the main point being taken is that it could have been prevented. I just feel the lack, again, back to you had mentioned before, a lack of leadership that falls under Tony Khan or whoever he hires to be in charge of handling those types of situations where it should never escalate to that point. Now, there's no question that CM Punk, Phil Brooks is a strong personality. So what happens is you need a guy like Vince McMahon or possibly a Triple H that is willing to take that, withstand that. And again, this I'm not trying to make this an attack on Tony Khan's leadership, but at the same time, you have to be able to manage these discretions, I guess, these lack of
The
decision.
transgressions by the wrestlers, right? You have to police it better.
You have to police it better, and you have to be able to, when you make a decision, say, all right, this is what's going on. I think when you hear other people talk about Tony Khan, it's always been a positive note. It's always been positive in terms of him being, always willing to listen and always wanting to have other people's idea. But at the same time, there needs to be a filter system. And as much as Tony Khan is a huge historian, like he loves wrestling and he does understand the history of wrestling, this doesn't necessarily make you the best person of saying, all right, what's a good idea and what's a bad idea. Now, how do you become one of those people? I feel like through practice and through repetition and kind of understanding now what makes a good show or what you feel makes a good show. But at the end of the day, you have to stick with your guns. And unfortunately, it feels like when CM Punk was part of AEW, he had free range of anything. He could say or do whatever he wanted, and he was never disciplined or never told, listen, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to be, professional on this standpoint, or we're not going to talk about this or talk about that or air dirty laundry. That never seemed to be the case. And kind of what we spoke about last week too, where now, not to change the subject here, but with Brian Danielson fining people for airing out their discretion. I mean, come on. I mean, what are we doing here? It's part of human nature. It's part of the day and age we're in right now. And of course, you can't make everybody happy, but ultimately, at the same time, that people need to know, working for whatever company, where the line is. Listen, if you have a problem, you come to this person or this group. You don't go out there and air it. And if that message hasn't been stated or it's been stated, then that means individuals are not taking it very seriously. And that's the huge difference right now where, like, hey, we're still in the honeymoon phase right now of CM Punk returning and what's going on in WWE. It couldn't be any better right now, right? So let's see what happens. But ultimately, from the AEW experience to the WWE experience here, it really feels more like WWE is saying, listen, this is what we're doing. We're not venturing from that. And if there's something that changes, then you're done. Plain and simple. It really feels that way, as opposed to AEW where it's not. So
All right,
they're
Jack.
going to regret it. But ultimately, I think what they're going to regret more is that they didn't handle the situation when these first issues started occurring. That's going to be their biggest regret.
Would you have fired Jack Perry?
Yeah, on the spot. Would have fired him because
Boy,
you set an example. And not because of Jack Perry. Just, again, it has to stop somewhere. And you have to be willing to, be the one to say, you know what, this is going to hurt me. And whatever the case might be, but the locker room needs to respect me. So that's what should have happened. But again, it should have never gotten to that point. The whole scenario when the first happened with the scrum in the back to where it led to after All in London and the UK, it's like you can't do that. It led to that point now where like you feared for your life, and those excuses, although may be very legitimate in terms of what Tony said, when you're listening from the outside and you're a fan watching stuff on social media, you're just shaking your head like, "Are you serious? You feared for your life? And it should never gotten to that point."
shouldn't. It shouldn't have. And it's just crazy to see a guy like CM Punk. Remember, this is the WWE now, which basically, if you heard the podcast with Cole Cabana, right, failed to mistreat him injury wise, put him out there in dangerous matches while he was hurt, fired him, basically sent the papers on his wedding day, right, his release papers. And no matter all that, think about what happened in AEW, that these guys made him even more miserable, right? Even more miserable for him to go back, wanting to go back. Even before that, before he was reinstated, he was looking to come back to WWE and was able to, I guess, make up with Triple H. And now he's happy. He's the happiest I've ever seen him, and it's weird, right? Because you're so used to like Moody Phil and like Grumpy Phil, and I mean, even the lighting, he looks different. He looks healthier. He looks it's crazy what happened there that it could be so, um, just just as bad as what happened in WWE, which is it just nuts to me, man. And now he's in NXT, getting appreciation from the stars that want to learn. Right, that was a big problem with him. He really didn't like the fact that these new age of wrestlers didn't want to learn, talk to the older guys, right? So, I mean, it's just crazy, this whole scenario. And it's going to be exciting here to see what happens. At the end of the day, real quick, as we put a ribbon on this part, does Warner Brother, does Warner Brother finally secure Raw? Do you think yes or no?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah, I think so too. And boy, that is going to be that is going to be some bad press for AEW, man. How do they recover? Where do they go?
The pros outweigh the cons here.
Where could they go, Trendsetter? What is next for AEW? Where could their home possibly be? We talked about FX. We talked about maybe Warner Brothers Discovery having both shows and moving AEW to the Discovery side of things, which would be, I mean, that would be a tough pill for Tony Khan to swallow. Where do you think they go? What is their next TV home spot? Do you think where they could go? FX? Where could it
Yeah,
be?
we could throw out networks here of where they possibly go, like you said, FX. But right now, let's wait and see what happens here because if everything looks in terms of what's going to happen, we'll have plenty of time to discuss what future home AEW can go into when this deal does, I feel, eventually happen. But right now, who knows? There are viable options out there, but in terms of there's nothing off the top of my head that I think would make a perfect fit. Like we said too, if this is going to happen, which I feel it will, it'll be a huge blow to Tony Khan's ego, in my opinion, in AEW.
Huge blow to the company. To guys like Jericho, they want to tout them winning shows when they're unopposed to one another. Yeah, sure. That's got to be a tough pill to swallow. And no matter how Jericho wants to spin around, that would be tough to have that on your plate and be the person under your watch that you're supposed to be that veteran there, and under your watch you kind of you're
He can only control so much, At the same time, he can bring leadership, he can bring enthusiasm to locker room job, but he can't control business. That falls on somebody else. He can spin it all the way he wants. He does it obviously because he has to. He wants to be a good employee. But let's be honest here. No matter what it is, you could spin anything the way you want to. It's terms of the higher ups out there in terms of handling the situation, not Jericho.
So we want to wish a speedy recovery to Kenny Omega. And one of the stars that I mentioned was Kenny Omega because this is a guy a couple years ago when he was Ring of Honor in Japan, and before he had the mystique of Kenny Omega, in Japan, and him being that wrestler and hearing about him and being like, oh, I got to stay up to see Wrestle Kingdom and see this Kenny Omega and Okada match, right? And then him having this huge reputation that when he came over to the States when Supercard was, for seeing him the first time in person in New Orleans during the WrestleMania weekend, Supercard of Honor, and actually seeing him in person, the aura of Kenny Omega, we built him up as this, I was ultimate fanboy for Kenny, right? You were there, you saw me fanboy for Kenny. And this is a guy who should always be in the main events, who, yes, has a silly side, yes, can be goofy, yes, loves cosplaying, loves all that stuff. But it's just surprising to me, and it has to be Kenny Omega because he has direction of his character. I'm surprised that he's been booked like this, tag teaming with Jericho, the Golden Jets. It just seems so forced. A lot of people say that promo he did with Jericho and Ricky Starks it was just like cringe, and it just really wasn't Kenny Omega. Hey, and maybe maybe Kenny Omega. It was just because he was just run down, man. Because we want to wish him a speedy recovery because he went to the hospital diagnosed with diverticulitis, which is absolutely brutal. I know Brock Lesnar had that. And I think he had to remove intestines with that. That's how bad he had it. So it's a really serious thing, and we hope Kenny Omega is okay. He's going to be out indefinitely, but for a guy like Kenny Omega, there's no way that I would have booked him this way towards the latter of 2023 because he came back from injuries. It took him a long time, came back, and then not anywhere close to the world title scene. Did he have that great matchup with MGF? Yes. But kind of more to put over the younger talent, he did. But it's just weird that Kenny Omega has not been booked properly in AEW because he should always be near the top.
Yeah, I feel with Kenny Omega, the weird thing about this whole thing, Jeff, is that yes, everything you just mentioned before in terms of what we saw in New Japan, things he would do that would have him considered as one of the greatest wrestlers out there in the ranking system. And in terms of when you saw Kenny Omega, because you didn't see him consistently every single week as you did on AEW TV, it was a special moment. It was like, wow, you don't see this guy in the States. You don't see this guy that often. It's kind of like it was like an allure about him, this mystique for Kenny Omega. But when they initially signed with AEW, I initially thought, wow, this is amazing. Now we're going to see the Young Bucks. Kenny's going to be on a different platform. It's going to showcase not only his skill in the ring, but in my opinion, what a genius he was from a psychological standpoint of in the ring, but also bring out more of his personality, the cleaner. And, I thought we are going to get that version of Kenny Omega. Not that it needs to be the same version he was in Japan. I get it. You're entertaining a different audience here. I understand that part, but it didn't really feel like it ever clicked right from the very beginning. I always felt like this isn't the guy. Forget the music entrance and stuff like that. I know some people like his entrance. I'm not a particular fan of his entrance. I like the old
You like Double Sky,
I
right?
love Devil Sky. I love it. It just to me it fit his character perfectly. Now, of course, moving on to a different promotion, you're evolving your character always. So I get it. Not a big deal, but just never felt like it clicked. And just always to me looked like he kind of looked out of sorts. That as much as he would relate and the audience loved him when he would appear on Dynamite and during the pay-per-views, just really felt like he never felt comfortable. That's what it felt like to me. He just never felt comfortable. And then when he took his time off and came back with the Young Bucks and there were trios tag, I'm thinking, okay, well now they're going to try to make the trios championships a thing now. So that's what's going to take most of his time. And when that's all over, we'll bring him back because right now there's no place for him in the singles division right now where the title is. Like you said, he should always be in title contention. So it just felt like he was never there. Like he was never really comfortable. And to this point right now, what I just said, last starts and stops, right? It felt like that way with Kenny too. Last starts and stops, especially with the Elite as well. And when I heard their contracts were coming up, and we talked about this before in the past, right? Like, oh, well, what else is out there? I think like Kenny's accomplished everything he's wanted to do. The one thing I think he did fail personally would be the women's division, because although that's getting better, it's still a work in progress. With the
Still,
roster, it's getting better, but still the quality is still not there, in my opinion, from when you compare it from TNA to WWE to NXT. It's not even close to that. Apples and oranges, fruits and vegetables is what it feels like. So it just feels I feel bad. I wish he has a speedy recovery. I really do. I want to see him back in the ring, but I don't know right now what's going on in terms of the booking. Yes, could people be booking him in necessarily not the best positions? Cool, but also that's also Kenny's scenario too. And one thing, and I want to ask you this too, is that I've always loved him on the microphone. I've always loved Kenny talking, but it really feels that
from good God, I don't know if you got like try to like
never saw it. Glad I did it. I don't really want to go and take a look at it because I heard bad things about it. I
seems like, hey, Chris Jericho's not doing anything, Kenny Omega's not doing anything. Where the Elite, where the Young Bucks, right? They're on hiatus, and Hangman Page is, doing his thing with drinking blood from, Swerve Strickland's forehead, right? That was a mouthful.
Yeah.
I had the mouthful of blood right there. I couldn't even say Swerve. So he just lack of direction, and that's kind of weird because you're right. Kenny has control of it, so he's okay in this stuff, and he's coming out like I'm honestly gonna say that he was sick this past week, and I'm just gonna say that it was just part of it. I mean, I just think he was like on fumes, so I'm gonna cut him some slack on that Wednesday night promo.
I
But
get it, Jeff, but to the question, has he ever felt comfortable there? Does it feel like the Kenny Omega you expected come from New Japan?
no, I just think it's that works for New Japan, and that works for a smaller for the being the elite audience. That's what it works for the YouTube series. All that fun stuff, all that gaming stuff works.
So what
Now,
do you think was missing then? What was missing from his personality or from his in-ring work that hasn't, in my opinion, translated over?
not the in ring work because I mean his matches with Osprey are amazing. So I don't think it's the in ring work. I think it's outside. I think the best Kenny Omega is a heel Kenny Omega. When he was when he had all the belts, That was so he was comfortable when he was the cleaner. That is to me Kenny's shtick, or that is Kenny's persona. He is the cleaner.
Would you say that was his best run then when he had all the titles?
Yeah, so I can't say he never was comfortable, because he was. When he was the belt collector, yes, he was, because that Kenny Omega worked. I believe that Kenny Omega. I wanted to see that Kenny Omega, not this one. Not the gamer, not the cosplayer, not that. The Kenny Omega that's, walking around like a peacock, strutting his wings or his feathers, actually, not because peacocks, but you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so him just saying that I'm this great guy, the egotistical Kenny Omega, the one that prior to losing to Hangman, the one that we saw there after he took a hiatus from injuries, that's the Kenny Omega that worked. That's the Kenny Omega we want to see. But again, too, when you have your own creative, and if he's part of that, then he's kind of willing himself. He's trying to get into these things that just don't work. I don't want to see the trios, Kenny. I want to see main event Kenny Omega. I want to see Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson. I don't want to see Kenny Omega versus Ospreay for the 100th time. I want to see that. I don't want to see him in trios matches. I don't want to see him team up with Chris Jericho. That doesn't appeal to me. Give me Kenny Omega versus Edge. Let's get to that.
So who's to blame then? Is it more the writers, the agents, or is it Kenny himself, or is it a 50-50 thing here?
To me, there's no one particular person. It's the leadership. It's someone telling, hey, Kenny, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to go into this avenue here. There's got to be someone. There's got to be an agent. There's got to be somebody there to be like, hey, listen, this works. This is what's working. Okay, that's what it is. It's you can blame both sides, but there's got to be somebody in there, like a Vince, to say, hey, this is what's going to work. You got to have that one guy that's going to put a kibosh. You can't just like put out crap ideas. Look what they're doing with Miro. Miro is having these crazy, stupid things with CJ Perry, which I don't understand. And that's when there's no creative direction. That's when you're like, Miro, we trust you. Go ahead, do it, whatever. And then all these guys are complaining, oh, it's so great because I'm free. I get to try stuff, whatever. No, you're not supposed to fail like that. You're not supposed to fail on national television like you are so badly. This Miro character was so great. And then he brings his wife in, and he's just like this sensitive guy that's just like not going to touch Andrade until the tournament's over. I mean, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, he's like this team guy. It's just not working. But we digress, though, because we got to move on. But again, Kenny Omega, we wish you a speedy recovery, man. I mean, that's no joke. And out indefinitely, we'll definitely miss World's End. So it's going to see what happens with Jericho. What's going to happen to that tag team. We'll see. We'll see if they still keep the number one contenderships for those titles. So, man, AEW, when you take a look at it, is not going to make a profit in 2023. That's per Brandon Thurston, who's like one of the best at what he does with this stuff. With all the wrestling numbers, he's your go-to guy. AEW will not make a profit in 2023. They'll actually be $34 million in the red, Trendsetter. And as far as 2024, it's going to be even close, or a little even worse than that. The only way that they can do better is if they sign a better TV deal, which now is up in the air. So if they fail to make a profit in 2023, yes, they're getting all this revenue from from advertising and everything. But at the end of the day, the cost expenses supersedes that. I don't know, man. It's just like are we piling on too much, or do we really have to call them out on this as well? Because it seems like we're killing AEW right now. And I don't want to. I don't want to be here killing AEW.
I don't want to do that either, but we're just kind of stating fact what's going on right now. We're showing the difference right now of how AEW started and where WWE kind of was in the scenario under the Vince regime and the transition that happened from there and the merger they had. And a lot of things changed, of course, but we have to state things that are true. It's not a bashing in terms of their facts. They're not going to turn a profit. And when they had events that they've liked to boast and promote, like All In, right, and the success it was, and you realize it wasn't necessarily a sellout in terms of the number they gave, which I understand. Sometimes numbers are manipulated for that particular reason. I mean, WWE has done that before for WrestleMania in terms of how many people have attended an event. I get it, right? But then when you look at them claiming to be having success and like all the, the people who are enthusiastic about it, and then you see dynamites, you see collisions, and then you see the lack of audience in terms of what you see on camera and what you see on there. And it's not like it hasn't been done before. I mean, every promotion, if they're struggling, will always tarp the top if there's not enough people because it doesn't look good on TV. I understand that. It's different than a house show, right? But for them claiming to say that they're great, they're better than ever, their numbers are amazing, that they're just all this positive feedback that you're hearing from whether it be Tony Khan himself or even Chris Jericho promoting it really well, and just people talking about how it's doing so well and what a great atmosphere and all these things. And then you see the other sides of it too. It's like, well, who's really telling the truth here? Is it more of just kind of showing that or kind of pretending that things are better than what they really are instead of stating the obvious? And so it doesn't surprise me for what we've been seeing the last few months in terms of the numbers and ratings, in terms of what's going on now with this deal we're talking about. We just talked about before about what could possibly happen. Could they lose their slot, their time on TNT or TBS? And now you look at the numbers of them not making a profit. And although probably maybe attendance wasn't as good, and we know that they're giving tickets away, like, hey, get one, get two free to your friends, kind of what WCW did during their time frame when they were struggling as well, trying to get people to come to their shows, whether it be Nitro or Thunder. You're seeing a scenario now where, like, you can only say so much. You could say the sky is red or sky is gray, and the sky is really blue right now. And it's not what you're promoting or what you're telling people is not what is coming in terms of the numbers. I
Yeah.
know numbers can be manipulated, but ultimately, in the same context, numbers don't lie either, and you're seeing it right now. So it's not bashing it; we're just stating facts here.
And like we said last week, it's kind of tough to see what is the cure. What can they do to turn things around as far as attendance? Because right now they're having an issue with attendance. Maybe they can go to smaller venues. Maybe try to limit going to bigger arenas, like you said, so you don't have to tarp all that off. And I mean, they continue to sign wrestlers, so I don't think that I don't know if it's hit them yet as far as making a profit, but it's just I guess for him now, it can be just a hobby or like a side thing where, hey, I get to collect all these toys and I get to book them and I get to do all this and create dream matches for the fans. But at the end of the day, you got to turn a profit. That's the whole point of it. And to the fans that don't see that and are like, oh well, you just hate AEW. Oh, you're just piling on. Listen, man, like if you had a business, don't you want to make a profit? Don't you want to feed the people, but also, make a little coin in your pocketbook as well, right? I
It's
mean,
funny, people that say that, people are bashing AEW now. I remember when AEW first started and the concept became a reality. That was the only thing people wanted to talk about, how AEW was this and WWE has fallen off.
we were walking out of the first Grand Slam, and then we were walking out, and we were walking out to go back to the car, and you hear this, Vince McMahon better be scared, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
Remember it all out
The
when we,
biggest thing was that AEW was in touch with their fan base and WWE wasn't.
yeah,
Now it's turned around. It's done a complete 180.
and who,
So I don't know why people think we're bashing AEW. We're just kind of stating that there's a point where WWE programming was not on the level that people wanted it to be, and AEW was giving the fans all that they wanted.
yeah.
What happens? They couldn't sustain that momentum, or they clearly have lost that momentum, and now we're kind of stating fact in terms of what WWE has been doing right now and what they've been successful at, and now we have to be fair and show what AEW is doing in terms of their struggles.
And I'll give them credit. When we went to All Out, and we saw back to back Adam Cole comes out, then Brian Danielson. I'm like, oh my god, man! And we are kind of like, man, WWE, man, they got to watch out. We were even saying it, man, because they were feeding the fans what they wanted at the time. They were the fresher thing, but they were recycling ex WWE guys at the end of the day, right? So you better bank on a guy like Will Ospreay. You better push him to the moon. This better be your guy. You invested as much money into. So I think what you can do now is make your stars. Make your stars the stars. As much as I love Edge and Christian fighting all the time, and they always do the best thing, and they're going to give you storytelling, those are two ex WWE guys main eventing your show. Again, it's falling to the trap of what WCW used to do. Every company seems to do this. There's these free agents. There's these free agents that are available in the next week or so. The Zigglers, the Shelton Benjamins, all these people that are free agents. You're gonna scoop them all up and just recycle these guys just because there's a breath, a new air to these guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can't make your stars. You have the Darbys, you have the I can't believe I said Darby's. You have the Will Ospreys now. They're going to be into your fold. Make them the focal point. Make them the stars. You know what I mean? You got to phase out these guys, man. It is what it is, man. But one of the things that I did want to say was that I was really anticipating this past week was that face off between CM Punk and Seth Rollins. I could not wait for that. I didn't think we were going to get a face off and them actually talking to one another. I really thought they were going to look at each other and then have Seth Rollins laugh and maybe walk away. No, but we got Seth Rollins. We got a serious Seth Rollins. We got a really probably one of the best Seth Rollins promos he's done in a long time. And you had CM Punk take it a little bit, and then he decides to enter the Royal Rumble. He signs with Raw, which is no surprise. I think that first promo was a nice little appetizer, and I can't wait for more, man. I think they delivered. I think they delivered well.
No question. I think less is more. I think we wanted to see CM Punk come right after Seth Rollins, after Seth made that speech about how he hates them. Similar to what Adam Hangman Page said to him. Was Seth going in business for himself? I have no idea, right? But the exact same thing from a different person, and I'll steal this from Bully Ray. Common denominator is CM Punk, right? It's true. It works because there is history there. When WWE had a show on Fox and he cut a promo on Seth Rollins and Seth, threw it back at him. And at that point, CM Punk had no thoughts of ever coming back to WWE, just wanted to do a wrestling show that was talking about WWE. It planted the seed there. And this is what people call great long-term storytelling, right? It couldn't have written itself any better. And now you have the scenario where he comes back and Seth now wants to be this protector of the locker room to protect the locker room in WWE from Seth Rollins from CM Punk, because CM Punk is such a poison. He's such a cancer that he doesn't want to infect the WWE with CM Punk. So great dynamic here. And in terms of CM Punk, it's like the scenario with him, and I'm sure a lot of people criticized his first promo, and he was running out of time, so he had to really cut it short. He probably didn't say everything he wanted to say, but got the message across. You don't want him to come out there and say everything at once. The longer you hold back him going after, because here's the thing: once CM Punk actually starts saying the things he wants, and they're going to be the verbal jabs, they're going to happen back and forth between the two. You don't want to do that too quickly, because then the payoff is still a ways away. So by slowly building this up and having Seth take a little bit of the advantage here, it starts showing Seth in a different light, where Seth, and ultimately, and we could talk about this down the road, Jeff, could ultimately be the heel in this scenario, because everyone loves CM Punk and people are starting to boo as much as they're chanting his song.
Getting some boos. Yeah.
Boos are getting there because they're so loyal and they love CM Punk so much that it could work against Seth. So I think it's being planned really well. I do like the way it's going. I mean, I think some people wrote on it on social media like Seth Rollins won, CM Punk. Come on, it's not even a question. They haven't really battled each other verbally.
Hey, you're getting a tame CM Punk now, right? You're letting him, get it, and I think it's on purpose.
I think it's a tease, really, because once they let go and say, "All right, go," then you're gonna see the same guy who's like, "Stop me when I'm telling lies," type of thing, and that's great. But you pick your moments when you do it. You don't give it all at once or all on one particular show. So I like the face off. I thought it was good. I forgot how tall Seth Rollins is compared to CM Punk. a lot of it could be the heels he was wearing too. Like there was thick.
True. I guess those are lifts. I didn't even notice that. I made a comment that Punk's in the land of giants now because I didn't realize how much taller Seth Rollins was. But I didn't see the shoes. I thought they were like flat boots or whatever.
Yeah, that's a small detail, why? Because this is the land of giants. The guys are so much bigger. We just finished watching Randy Orton. My God, Randy Orton towers over everybody right now, even including the Tribal Chief.
We'll talk about the Tribal Chief in just a few minutes, and so just trying to get back to that one about Randy Orton. So, yeah, listen, I am excited about where this is going. I like the smell of CM Punk because he really hasn't played his cards yet, because right now he's making you say, I'm home, I'm sorry, I apologize. When does CM Punk freaking apologize, right? He's home, And again, like guys like Bully Ray saying, would you call this home? How sincere could you be with this? Is there an angle to CM Punk? It's still a mystery, right? So he
Yeah,
could be
part of me would say, what does it matter? But it also causes you to be intrigued and start questioning and talking about it, which is the whole freaking point. He could say I'm home, and people are going to say that's so disingenuous. Who cares? You're talking about it, so they win.
yeah. And CM Punk, one thing he's done though is right now he solidified himself a main event spot at WrestleMania. Whether it's Saturday or Sunday, he is in the not even he is in the conversation. He is part of that main event,
Yeah,
WrestleMania. It's him and Seth, or if they want to do Roman, but I think it's gonna be him and Seth. That you've not pigeonholed, but by bringing in CM Punk this close to WrestleMania, they've kind of put themselves in the way to be like, hey, we're gonna get to here, and we got to get Seth and CM Punk, right? I think that's where we're gonna go and where it's headed. And listen, right now, I'm excited. I want to see where this goes, and I believe it with the Bloodline storyline. I believe in WWE and their storytelling, so I'm going to be excited
wow.
to what they have coming up. Now, we talked about guys. Right now, the roster is stacked. Somebody that's leaving is Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's taking some time off. He had a tremendous 2023. Did it go the way it wanted to? As far as that match in Montreal Elimination Chamber, no, it didn't. A lot of people say that Sammy should have walked away from Montreal as a champion, but you never know. Would have been for instant gratification, then what would happen next? You don't know. You don't want to take from Roman's incredible run here, but he's taking some time off. Granted, some time off from WWE, and we just want to say thank you, Sammy, and can't wait to get back. You had a tremendous 2023, and you're right up there as one of the major players of this past year. And you made 2023 so enjoyable with your whole Bloodline storyline. Trendsetter, what would you say about Sammy as he takes some time off here from WWE?
I would say, Jeff, what better type of success could you have from where he started and the whole storyline with the bloodline, which is probably one of the most compelling storylines of 2023, without a question in my mind. It's been such a successful time for him. Now, granted, yeah, the whole scenario of Elimination Chamber and people debating whether he should have won the title or not, I agree with the decision they made. At the same time, it was Sami Zayn having his moment in terms of being the main event spotlight, more of trying to figure out, could he hold up on the main event spotlight? I think he can. But then he sees interviews with several outlets in terms of him thinking that he doesn't really feel like he's the guy. So, when you hear somebody say that too, it kind of is discouraging. Where like all these people are for you, they have such momentum for you, and yet you don't really believe it yourself. Like he even said himself too, like, I could probably if I won the title holder for like a couple months and and move on to the next guy. I'm like, don't you want to feel like you're the next guy with all the enthusiasm?
Well,
People
he said that he's not this prototypical WWE champion, right? I mean, he knows it.
Yeah, he knows it, but he uses it. I feel, at least from what he said, he used that as an excuse of why he probably won't be it. But hey, listen, if you're in that momentum, who cares if you're not the prototypical WWE guy? I mean, listen, I'm not comparing him to Shawn Michaels, but people think Shawn Michaels is the prototypical WWE guy when you had all these giants as champions. Was Bret Hart? Stone Cold Steve Austin, was he a prototypical, the guy, The Rock? They made themselves
Yeah,
those guys. Brian Danielson, Daniel Bryan was in WWE. The whole Yes movement, he made that a thing.
yeah.
Even though they call him a B plus player, and the whole storyline lived on from there. So huge success for Sami Zayn. There's no question he deserves time off. If he is dealing with injuries or just kind of wants time off because, as you and I have spoken before in the past, it's a different animal, WWE. That grind is crazy. And sometimes, who knows if he's dealing with injuries or he just needs some time off to reconnect. Because you know how in depth Sammy is when it comes to storylines or trying to be involved in things. It also could be another personal issue, too. Like, you don't want to be lost in the shuffle either. I think Sammy has done a great job, especially in 2023, of garnering such momentum where, like, when you do use him, it means something. You don't want him to be a place filler right now because of where he was and where he elevated to in terms of sharing the ring with Roman Reigns and doing such a great job of doing it and making us as fans believe and be invested in that, which is a great word I always like to use. Why would you want to use it? So hopefully this time off will recharge his batteries. It'll cause the fans to grow fond of Sammy and miss him a little bit more. So when he does come back eventually down the road, it'll be just as exciting. So a great 2023 for Sami Zayn.
Definitely a major player in 2023. When we hope when you come back in 2024 that you come back and you're refreshed. All right, Trendsetter, the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns is back. This is probably the last time you see him in 2023. He came back and made some news. Good seeing the head of the table back on SmackDown. Kind of made a little bit of a headline, making Solo Sikoa the next Tribal Chief. If anything were to happen to Roman Reigns, then Solo Sikoa, not Jimmy Uso, would be the next in line to take over as a Tribal Chief. A little bit of stunning news for everybody. That he even named a successor today, just kind of weird out of the blue, right? But he wanted it was promotion time, right? Promotion time, and just Jimmy Uso just doing his great job with the yeet, no yeet, and just his reaction, thinking he was going to get the spot. And Paul Heyman kind of played into that too, thinking that he was going to be the next guy in line because he thought he's contributed enough. Just a great dynamic. Jimmy's awesome in his role. I would like to see Solo talk a little bit more, but I'll take it for now. And Roman Reigns is just good to have him back there. We hadn't seen him since Crown Jewel. And then, so that's where it's going to go. Everyone's talking about, I can't wait till this bloodline
locking in now because there's just not enough space for him. The LA Knight attack, him kind of bypassing the bloodline, and we don't know why AJ type of thing. And we'll get the answers to that in the coming weeks. But wow, exciting time. Great show for SmackDown.
Yeah, man, a star-studded. I mean, it's just an embarrassment of riches now. And Triple H has a vision, and we'll see what happens. And of course, with new people coming in, there's people on the way out. Unfortunately, Charlotte Flair, we found out that injury from last week. She's going to be out 9 months, so she's going to miss Royal Rumble. She's going to miss WrestleMania. So let the Sasha Banks coming into the Royal Rumble, making a surprise appearance, let those rumors start now more. That Charlotte Flair has been injured, so we wish her a speedy recovery too, man. That's so unfortunate, man. We get so close to seeing the Four Horsewomen together, and then something happens, right? Yeah. Something happens. So we wish her a speedy recovery, and then we'll touch more on based on Liv Morgan as well later on this week too. But again, just stay tuned to HSP for all the latest, guys. Listen, we love doing this, man, and we do it for you guys. Like and subscribe on all our platforms here on the Give It a Shot Network. Like and subscribe also on our Instagram at High Spot Podcast, on the Twitter and Threads, all High Spot Podcasts. And also make sure you click our YouTube too, High Spot Podcast there as well. And as well as our Apple Podcast. You can find this in a audio version on all our major podcast platforms. So guys, give us a listen. We are powered by Fast Break Coffee. And now, guys, we will see you next week, and close it, Trendsetter, as only you can.
Yes, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew from my tag team partner, Scoundrel Jeff Martin. I am the Trendsetter, Brian Berger. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. We will catch you again next week with another episode leading towards the Royal Rumble, folks. So exciting to be talking about this. What a great time to be a fan. Guys, thank you so much for following us, giving us your support. And remember, we do this for one reason and one reason only. Since day one, we do this for you, the crew.
Gotta get to the gym, Trendsetter, man. I'm kind of feeling, gotta get a sweat going.